All right, all right. Happy New Year. It is 2025, and when I say the year got started with a roller coaster ride, oh my gosh, we have so many things to catch up on. But I am Friday Jones. This is Black Civics Collective being brought to you by the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. And today, when I tell you we have some exciting guests. I don't know if the ghosts are here today, but we have some very exciting guests. We have Nick Bezzel and we have Katherine Henderson. And we're going to get into the wonderful work that they do. However, before we do that, I just want to wish everybody a happy Black History Month. We got to shout out Carter G. Woodson. What's so interesting for me, like Black History Month, having my grandmother tell me, oh, when I was a kid, Black History Month, it wasn't a month, it was just a week. And to have her giving me the history at, I think this was a couple of years ago, so maybe at 95 years old, that to me was better than, learning from the actual history books. And so happy Black History Month. I hope people are really, as we are in this interesting political climate where somehow like our history is not American history, I hope other ethnicities and other Americans really embrace the rich history that is America, because it is very inclusive and comprehensive, particularly when it comes to the Black American experience and the American freedmen experience. And our culture is rich. And so there's no bowing down, to the policymakers, as they would have some sort of confusion as if the daughters of the Confederacy are still educating us. But in any event, I digress. There is so much going on in California. A lot of reparations bills were dropped yesterday, and not yesterday, on Friday. And I think there was some bombshells, actually. California's Black Legislative Caucus dropped a suite of what they are calling repair. They're not calling them reparations bills, including a bureau, not a freedmen agency, but a bureau. And at the same time, we had Republican Bill Asalee actually dropping AB 13, I think it's AB 1315, for an actual Freedmen's Bureau. So we've got the Republican bringing back Senator Bradford's original bureau bill. There were some other bills dropped by California Legislative Black Caucus. That there are some other bills being dropped by the California Black Legislative Caucus that include, education and some other things. So we're glad to see that there is some uniformity happening with the California Legislative Black Caucus. And we have always said as reparationists that reparations is not partisan, and because it is nonpartisan, it means that we talk across the aisle, as they say in politics. This is not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. It actually is an American thing, and it's the responsibility of our legislators across the board to go ahead and do the repair that was actually not done during the Reconstruction phase of this country. And so I'm happy to see that that news is coming out. I don't, the dismantling of the FBI is also big talk. And, for us, I think that means something different than it might mean to other Americans, because for us, if anyone ever actually read the case MLK, Dr. King's family brought, the FBI was implicated in his death. We know that the FBI used COINTELPRO during the 60s and during the civil rights era to really put a lens on just regular Black folks trying to exercise their citizenship and their full rights in this country. We know that COINTELPRO with the FBI was run through LAPD thanks to the research that was done by Cal State Northridge. We know that Ayanna Pressley actually said she had, during a congressional session, she asked about this idea of Black extreme identity and what was it? And the FBI basically said it's something that they made up. And so as we are in this interesting sort of phase of FBI agents being laid off it, and we understand Edgar Hoover, J. Edgar Hoover. We understand Kennedy's death a little bit more thanks to the Freedom of Information Act. I think we're living in very, very interesting times, and so I think it makes today's guest even more important and more pertinent. And so I'm going to go ahead and talk really, really quickly about Black civics and why it is that we do this show. But Black civics, the whole concept of this show, in addition to providing a reparations lens for news and current events happening around us, the goal is to make sure that people understand civic engagement, that you do more than just vote, although voting is absolutely exercising your civic duties, but becoming part of organizations like the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, becoming active, writing op-eds, really, really engaging and not shying away from the political process where you are is very important. And that is why we do this show. And so we hope that today, as we talk a little bit about Second Amendment rights, right? We talk through a reparations lens. What does sort of 2A look like? I want to go ahead and bring up from the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club, General Nick Bezzel, who is a vocal advocate on Second Amendment rights, Black empowerment, Black self-defense, political justice reform, and reparations. It's his deeply held belief that those vital components are all required for the well-being and prosperity of a Black nation. Bezzel is also a highly decorated military veteran, and during his time in the military service, he served 2 tours of duty in Iraq. Sir, thank you so much for your service. A tour in Afghanistan and a tour near the demilitarized zone on the border of North and South Korea. And prior to the military, his experiences growing up have helped to shape and mold the man that we see today. And I'm proud to call Brother Nick Bezzel a friend. How are you, General? Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Hanging in here. Life is good and grand. It's all sunshine on the West Coast, so
That's good. That's
it's
good.
good.
Yeah.
Um, I want to also bring up Kat now. So, Kat Henderson, she is a native Texan born and raised in San Antonio with a generational line hailing from the southern central Texas area with a specific focus on reparations and self-defense since 2020. Katherine has worked under the leadership of Commander Nick Bezzel and is proud to have been involved in the building of the foundation of the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club. She's responsible for tasks including day-to-day administrative work, coordination of national events, resource allocation for community initiatives, and justice initiatives, just to name a few. Welcome, Kat. Also, I'm super proud to call a friend.
I was like, we didn't see each other too long ago. We were just out in those Los Angeles streets on
We were.
Monday, weren't we?
I think Katherine Henderson is here with us, NAASD and EGP. We're doing the darn thing, and I'm so proud to have you both. I'm a proud member of the organization, so I thought it only best that I put on the gear this morning to welcome you guys into the Black Civics Collective. And so, yesterday was a range day for the Southern California chapter, and we had our signage up, and there were some people, and they said, well, who is Elmer Geronimo Pratt? So you guys named the organization after him. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, my first introduction to General Geronimo was actually through music. Listening to Tupac Shakur, the late great Tupac Shakur, and he would mention Geronimo in his songs, and understanding Tupac's background. He comes from a Black Panther family. And so that kind of took me down a path to kind of see exactly who he was. And as I did the research on him, I mean, an amazing man, just an amazing human being overall. And, understanding his background, he's from Louisiana. Anybody that you see in Los Angeles with the last name Pratt is probably one of his family members, because all of his siblings moved to Los Angeles. And so
Mm.
even when you have the young lady on TV, I believe she was on Disney, that that's his niece.
Oh, Kyla Pratt.
History, when he was a quarterback in high school, natural leader, went to the army, Vietnam veteran, highly decorated, comes back and decides, based on the help with the elders, decided to get involved in what was going on right there in the 60s. And so his family was moving to California. He kind of got some guidance to go to California and used his expertise from being in the army to help train black people all through the United States. Even while he was incarcerated and he was interviewed, he made a statement where he said, "My people didn't even know how to load a magazine. They didn't know the right side of a weapon." He was like, "So I taught them how to do that. And if you're asking me in this situation, yes, I'll do it again." And that just speaks to the character of General Geronimo, how he really wanted his people um, to be able to protect themselves, to be able to defend themselves. And even right there in Los Angeles, where you're at Friday, 41st and Central, the basically the creation and the execution of SWAT teams and SWAT practices in America came because of Geronimo Pratt when he had a standoff with the police in Los Angeles. And so there's just so much that I know we don't have the time, but I could talk all day about the things that he has done. But I think one of the greatest things, besides training black people and teaching black people how to defend themselves, was the fact that after he was wrongly accused of a crime, he was able to get out, gain his freedom, and then he sued the LAPD and the federal government and won, $5 million from these entities. And so even with everything stacked against him, he was able, he lost 27 years of his life, but he made such an impact just around this country and globally, quite frankly. And he made a huge impact on my life. And so I felt, based on his character and everything that he did, that he was the perfect person to name his organization after.
So thank you for that. And this week I was at an art show, and the photographer's name is Leroy, and I, for the life of me in this moment, cannot recall his last name. But there was a photograph at City Hall of Geronimo Pratt with attorney, what is his name?
Johnny
Who passed,
Cochran.
with Johnny Cochran. And we know Johnny Cochran was involved very early on through his practice in the reparations space. And Kat, I just want to bring you in because your bio talked about, how you were raised, and obviously you're a proud Texan. We know the Lone Star State has very different gun laws, right, than the state of California.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could talk a little bit about kind of your background and what drew you to this idea of self-defense.
Mm-hmm. Thank you again, Friday, for the opportunity. And so, my background, I'm not a lifelong firearms expert or anything like that. My family had, we don't have a military family or anything. So I was very unfamiliar with firearms. I just knew in Texas we are very liberal, very free spirited when it comes to firearms. And so I feel like I'm in a lucky spot to be able to learn. And so I actually came across, I wasn't a firearms enthusiast. I was around some firearms, but I was very nervous, let's just say, very apprehensive when it came to actually using them. I had one for self-defense in my home, like a shotgun, but I never used that. And so I felt like there was instability that was ramping up from these elections, the 2016 election in particular, and Trump became the president. And I was like, oh my goodness, we are in trouble. I started seeing some data come out, reading information about, Black wealth and how we weren't going to have any wealth. And I was like, oh no, that's a real problem. I had no idea. They do not teach us in school, any kind of real history or it doesn't teach us a lot of critical thinking. And so I did come across information, just saying, hey, Black folks probably need to wake up and get to work. And I decided, yes, I want to become involved. So the reparation space was the first space to try to get us back on the path to getting our wealth back. And through that, I actually came across General Bezzel, or he came across me. We actually met at a NAACP meeting. And we decided to, just talk a little bit more about, what we can do. When I found out that he was, very skilled in firearms, I found out, he gave me his background, and I was like, you know what, let me go ahead, and because it's going to be dangerous out here now. I decided to go ahead and get some training and learn as much as I could. And I feel more confident than I ever have now in handling firearms. I've been around a few of them. And so I feel blessed for that. But I knew that there is a lot more that needed to be done. General had that vision also. And so we decided to build on this club and open it up to, not just, getting out there and training to make it a comfortable space for Black folks to learn and train, because here in Texas, you're going to have a lot of Caucasian owned establishments. That's where all the firearms are at. That's who owns all the shops, all that stuff, the ranges. And so I was lucky to get into a space where, I had somebody I could trust training me. So that's how I got started in the firearms section of the reparations, because again, I understand that we're soft targets out here, and so we need to make a change to be able to defend ourselves and our families and our communities. And I was just happy to be at the forefront of that with General Bezzel.
Thank you. And Nick, let me pivot to you because you are highly decorated. And again, thank you for your service, multiple tours. For us, World War I, World War II in particular, firearms were reclaimed, right? Local sheriffs, when our military returned from those wars, their firearms were taken away from them. And so initially you talked about Elmer Geronimo Pratt and how he was in community and people didn't know how to even load a magazine. With your military background and kind of this idea of sort of coming back home, when you're in community and talk about where the chapters are, because I know there are multiple chapters, so that people can maybe, come and actively seek, but talk also about the website and what you experience when you're in community. Now, I've been to trainings and I've seen you all even training like the young people, the babies, and teaching firearm safety. But talk about what your reception has been like in community through the gun club.
Well, so we have chapters pretty much all through the South, Oklahoma, California now as well, members on the East Coast. So wherever people decide that they want to stand a chapter up or people want to become members, if we have the resources and the ability, then we stand chapters up there. Because, that was the vision from the very beginning, is to train as many Black men, women, and children as possible. Because the whites, they do it, they train their kids very small. As soon as they can handle a firearm, they start training them. And so, my whole thing was to no longer make it taboo for Blacks to own firearms, because it's always been that stigma that, if whites have a firearm, they're good. If Blacks have a firearm, they're up to no good. And so, we really needed to change that opinion of Black gun ownership. That was the primary reason, and of course, to be able to protect ourselves. And so receptions have always been mixed. During times of tragedy, obviously, 45th, 47th president of the United States, when he's in office or something bad happens to Black people, you can guarantee applications come flooding in. People, we live in a reactive society and not a proactive society.
Yeah.
And so instead of people just saying, hey, let me go ahead and join and get training to be prepared in the event that something happens, people are more likely to say, oh, something already happened. Let me get on board now. And what you will find, and this isn't true for every group, but you do find people in legacy organizations, Black legacy organizations, that will be standoffish. Now, I say that, but you will find members or you will find chapters throughout the country of these legacy organizations. And I'm not going to be specific about anybody, but I'm sure we can all figure it out, who we're talking about.
We know the
Uh,
regular.
okay, yeah. Yeah, just the regular, organizations. But you will have people, even though the entire organization itself may not necessarily support the Second Amendment, especially in the defense of Black people, but you will find uh, people within those organizations, sub leaders who will support us and have us out. For instance, last year, I went and spoke at the state conference for the NAACP in the state of Texas. I went and spoke at that conference, and we have a great relationship with the state leader, as well as the Austin, Texas president. You can go into Mississippi. I mean, we have members who are also members of the NAACP in the state of Mississippi. And so, we're trying to make it where understanding that you can have both without having to shun one or the other. There was a gentleman who was a Second Amendment advocate, and he was also an NAACP president. And his philosophy was that we have to be able to defend ourselves.
Absolutely.
And some people may be familiar who I'm talking about as I'm talking about him, but his name was Robert F. Williams. And he actually has a book, Negroes and Guns. And he talks about self-defense. You're talking late 50s, early 60s. So he was the president of his local chapter in Carolina. He was also an NRA member. But the NAACP, everything that he was fighting for wasn't just about guns. The guns were to preserve Black life. But he wasn't getting the support he needed from the NAACP, which I still will find true today. Again, not local chapters, maybe not even an entire state, but you will see pushback, on a national level. And then those who have been around, forever with the NAACP. But then you do have some, the younger generation of NAACP members, and some of the ones who have always been, who've always been gun supporters. So you'll find those in the mix. So I'm not saying, everybody in every legacy organization is standoffish to firearms, but as a whole, they tend to be.
Yeah, and that for me is not surprising because culturally, right, though, when you're talking about Brother Williams from the NAACP, he came about, I guess, in the 50s. And so we're talking about that civil rights era. We're talking about Dr. Martin Luther King. And, Dr. Martin Luther King obviously choosing nonviolence. I feel like my introduction to firearms, and for me, was very sort of innocent because my grandfather was a military person. He was in the Navy, and he, all of his grandkids, he took us fishing, and he took us to go shoot, with his revolver gun. We shot cans, on little trips with my grandfather. And it just seemed very normal and, something to do. And I think, for us culturally, especially like with the Great Migration, we're out of the South, right? We're not hunting. We're not necessarily shooting for game anymore. And we're in urban environments as we migrate, into the cities, into the Detroits and the New Yorks and the Chicagos. And so that relationship, and in a way that disconnection from the land, you don't necessarily experience a relationship with a firearm unless it's through some act of violence. And I think so just when we kind of step back and look at what you said, what you've just said, it's not overly surprising to me. I'm going to take a quick break. We have a couple of commercials I want to run. And then when we come back, I want to talk about some of the work that you all have done, the very positive work that you've done in community. So let us take a quick, it's not a commercial break because we're talking about ourselves, but let's take a quick commercial break and then we'll come back and we'll talk about those things.
Welcome. We are the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants. Our mission is to advance the national movement for reparations. The United States Office of Management and Budget set 5 minimum standards for collecting racial data. The Black race is defined as a person having origin in any of the Black racial categories of Africa. NAASD has recommended that the OMB disaggregate data to accomplish 3 goals: decouple race from ethnicity, create an ethnic term that exclusively identifies descendants of persons enslaved in the United States, and create an ethnic term that preserves the American freedmen political status. The ethnogenesis of the African American identity is a result of ethnocide. The identity is from a people with shared history. Race identity plus ethnic identity equals peoplehood. Together, we can fix this dilemma with the OMB. We can build a coalition, grow the movement, and create a unified demand. What can you do to get involved? You can join NAASD today at www.naasd.org. You can email the OMB using our toolkit, or you can donate to NAASD so that we can continue this work. Thank you for your time, and stay connected with us on social media at NAASDORG. We are on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. You can also sign up for our newsletter at www.naasd.org.
All right, welcome back to Black Civics, where we're talking about Second Amendment rights and reparations. We, the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, are doing a campaign called The First 100 Days. The First 100 Days campaign launched with the induction, I guess, of President Trump into office. And on April 29th of 2025, we will be convening in Washington, D.C., and I am making a call to all Black organizations and organizers. We are taking the call to reparations or for reparations directly to our legislators in Washington, D.C. I want to invite people to get involved. You can go to naasd.org and sign up for the first 100 Days campaign. You will automatically get our toolkits that'll help you do your social media around the campaign, write a press release, and organize people in your locale and community to join you in Washington, D.C. We are also, during this first 100 days, divesting from corporations that actually utilize prison labor, and those companies, and this has nothing to do with DEI, this has everything to do with reparations, but those companies include Target, Avis, American Airlines, Starbucks, and McDonald's. And we ask that while you're divesting from them, find organizations like the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants, or even our guest today, the Elmer Geronimo Pratt Gun Club, and make donations to organizations that are actively working on reparations. The video that you just saw was from the Office of Management and Budget, and the National Assembly of American Slavery Descendants is actively trying to create and maintain an ethnic identifier that separates the idea of race and being Black from ethnicity. And there was what do you call it, responses that were requested of the OMB that had to be delivered, I believe it was by February 18th, and we made sure that we participated in that round. And we encourage all of our viewers to stay actively involved with the OMB, what's happening. There's some things that are happening with that department, but stay invested in this particular thing of decoupling race from ethnicity for people who were and are American freedmen, descendants of persons enslaved in the United States. And so I want to bring back our guests where we left off with them, with General Nick Bezzel and Katherine Henderson. We left off talking. I wanted to highlight some of the work that you all have done. You all do power summits in Mississippi. I know I attended a power summit in Jackson, Mississippi, and in Holly Springs. I know that you've done work with no-knock warrants. And so if you could talk about what the Power Summit is, maybe one of you take the Power Summit, and if the other one could take the actual legislative work that you've done, that would be great.
Kat, you can go first.
Okay, sure. So I'll just touch on the Build and Power Summit. This is a summit that's come before our time. We were just welcomed into it. It's actually the Black Liberation Movement out of Mississippi that has spearheaded the summit, and so we were lucky to join them, collaborate with them, to help. I guess what is it to create a larger impact, I guess, bring more attention to it, and yeah, so luckily we were able to be brought into the fold, and they talk about all kinds of things. They bring in political leaders from all over. It was the state of Mississippi and outside too, if they can get them. They also talk about health and wellness. They touch on education because that's so important, especially Black history for our children. There's just so many, they bring in community advocates, so many different aspects of it. There's also community service piece. I think something beautiful that the Build and Power Summit highlights is just having a positive, love and appreciative relationship with our elders who have put in that work. And so they have a breakfast with the elders. There's also, like I said, a community service piece. So we're going out and we're actually making contact with the community, letting them know what we do, how we could serve them, and also providing some kind of goods or services to them. And so we've been very lucky to be a part of that for the past 2 years. We were part of the 7th annual Build and Power Summit and the 8th annual Build and Power Summit, and we will be going into the 9th year as well. So we hope to see everyone there. It's going to be in Holly Springs, Mississippi again this year. Holly Springs is such a gem for American Black history. That is the home of Ida B. Wells Barnett. Skip Robinson, Alfred Skip Robertson also is not too far away, did a lot of political work, and also was one of those self-defense advocates and pushing for the rights of Black Americans too. That's just some of the few that, are heroes and sheroes that a lot of us just don't know about or we didn't know enough about. And so you're going to get that. You're going to get immersed in all of those things when you're attending the Build and Power Summit. And we hope to see you again this year. It will be happening September the 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st of this year. But more information is to come. And General, I'll let you take the legislative piece. Thank you.
Thank you. Well said. So when we started the organization, again, the idea came about in 2019, and then in 2020, January 2020 is when we actually officially started the gun club. As we kind of navigated 2020, we all understand what type of year that was. And just kind of as we were digging in to kind of learn more about different things, we ran across a gentleman by the name of Marvin Guy, who was a victim, and I say victim, of a no-knock warrant because the police just all kinds of mishandling what was going on over there, and tried to go in this man's home as if he was some some drug kingpin, as he was El Chapo or somebody. But during that no-knock raid, one of those slave patrollers ended up getting killed while trying to execute that no-knock warrant. So Marvin, for 9 years, was incarcerated with no trial. 9 years for no trial. And I believe he had been in there 5 or 6 years when we had learned about the case. And so there were other people on the ground. There was another gentleman who lost his life, a black man, a black American man who lost his life, I believe, shortly after Marvin Guy's situation had happened. And the police ended up killing him. And there were different groups trying to do work to get no-knock warrants banned in Killeen, Texas. This is where these incidents happened at. And so once we got involved, we really started to push to ban no-knock warrants in that city and then throughout the state of Texas. So we would have armed community patrols. We would go to the city council meetings. And as we were doing this, two things happened. We had a city council member for the city of Killeen, Melissa Brown. She decided to help us and then present banning no-knock warrants in the city of Killeen, which eventually, I believe, passed all yes votes and one no vote. You always got one coon that's going to vote against, the betterment of our people. So we ended up getting no-knock warrants banned in Killeen, and we were a part of that process every step of the way. But what also happened, we tried to get no-knock warrants banned on the state level. And the individual who actually sponsored that bill, a lot of people are familiar with her now. Her name is Jasmine Crockett, out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area, who is a U.S. representative now. But Jasmine Crockett sponsored the bill to get the no-knock warrants banned through the entire state of Texas. Of course, the Republicans control, the state house. And so it was right down party lines. So it wasn't enough Democrats who voted to ban no-knock warrants. But what ended up happening with all of that is Austin ended up putting it on a ballot. They banned no-knock warrants. San Antonio, their city council just flat out banned them as well. So while we weren't able to get the entire state to ban them, there were cities throughout the state of Texas who got on board with what we were doing and were able to ban no-knock warrants. It's a tragedy that, two black men had to lose their lives behind it. One actually died. The other one was given life because of, him defending himself, which goes against everything Texas believes in, because Texas is a stand your ground state, castle doctrine. And so, that's not a tool that these slave patrollers should be using, and not expecting those type of results, not to expect death and destruction to be the results of these no-knock warrants. So, we worked hard at it, and we did get some victories from it. But, it was a long, hard fight. And, again, I wish we could have done more, but that's what we were able to do to get these bills and this legislation passed here in the state of Texas for no-knock warrants.
And I think that is awesome, and that is excellent work. We all know, obviously, Breonna Taylor, her name is sort of nationally known because she was served with a no-knock warrant and she lost her life, behind it. And when you're in that position, and I watched the tape just yesterday of it was a no-knock warrant, and the home that wound up being invaded was across the street from who the police were actually looking for. And it was an actual officer's home, a retired officer's home that they had entered. And I just thought to myself, what do you do in a situation like that? It's so hard to defend yourselves because they're coming in with battering rams and with a presumption of guilt. And if you are literally in the wrong place and you're making mistakes, or this is an old address for someone, there's no recourse. And in a case where someone actually fired, why would you have to serve time when you are, particularly in Texas, you refer to the castle doctrine, you're defending yourself. And so that work is really, really extremely, extremely important. It really is. No question there, just a statement. The club, how do people join? How is your membership structured in the areas that you are? Obviously, you all have a website, you have information that you can share, but could you just give some basic membership information to viewers who are watching, or if viewers want to make a donation to the organization, particularly around the work that you do? I know you all also don't just do the legislative part. I've seen chapters in community doing food giveaways, like really, really showing up in community. So if you could talk about what the membership structure looks like, so that people, especially I will say in the Los Angeles area, because you're expanding membership there. You know, that's where I'm based out of. And so I want to make sure we're plugging so people know how to actually connect in.
Absolutely, and I can speak on that. So as far as membership is concerned, your first step is going to be to visit our website, egpgunclub.com, and there you'll find basic information about what you can expect as a member. That you'll find that application, you'll find what we're looking for from you. You'll find basic dues information, and that's, yeah. Once you go on and you can actually apply for either training or membership. And for either of those, you don't have to have any firearms experience. That's why the gun club is here to train you. If you're proficient in firearms, that's wonderful. But if you're not, that's okay too. We're looking for everyone. And so go ahead and send your application in. You will receive a reply back with the meeting date, so that you can join our introductory question and answer session with our leaders. That's myself, General Bezzel, and even some of the local and state leaders across our units. So they'll be joining us as well. At that point, we learn a little bit more about you and what your motivations are, either for wanting to train or to become a member. And if you're wanting to become a member, if all goes well, you'll learn about our organization more in depth. But you can make a decision at that point if you'd like to go ahead and join us. And you'll receive a welcome letter, then you'll receive a welcome package. You'll get welcomed into our communications, where you'll be introduced to your local unit leaders, and then y'all start doing the work from there. Our units are fairly autonomous. We don't dictate what anyone necessarily does, because only you and your communities will understand what's best for your communities as far as the needs are concerned. But we do have a 4-hour requirement per month, but that may vary a little bit depending on what is going on in your area. But your local leadership will typically guide you through that. And so, like I said, 4 hours per month, we want you to put some work in, and you're going to be involved in community outreach, and you're going to be involved in those justice initiatives that's affecting your local community. And so with the outreach, we have, this just varies in your area. What are the needs? So some places we have mentorship, we have the schooling for children. Others, we like in Central Texas, we feed the homeless community every 2 weeks. We also offer firearms training to the public. There's just a varied amount of things that you can be involved in when you join this gun club. And on the justice initiatives, you're pushing for that change, and that could be to help political prisoners. That could be to change a city ordinance in your area, or something on the state level, like we were trying for the no-knock warrants here in Texas. So it's just a lot of involvement that you're going to have the privilege of being a part of, because we need you anyway. So we do hope that interested folks do join us, and we look forward to talking to y'all soon and getting y'all on in here.
I'll tell you, if you're joining in California, you're going to be working on California reparations and Los Angeles reparations. So know what you're getting into on the front end. Thank you so much for that, Kat. And Nick, I'm going to go ahead and give you the final word for the day.
Well, first, Sister Friday, thanks for having us on and being able to spread our message. And I'm glad you said, people who join with the LA chapter, the Southern California chapter, they're going to be working on reparations. So I think it's critical for me to say this. For us, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I use this with a lot of different things. And, Kat can verify this, so we can go all the way back, 2018, 2019. Even in the reparations space, we were big on Twitter with reparations, still is, but that time, it was like a huge explosion of it. And I was talking about self-defense then. And that's why I say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Historically, when we go back and look after the Civil War, all these, bustling Black communities that we had in America were destroyed. A lot of them were done by acts of violence from white people. So that's why I say it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We can go back and recreate Black Wall Streets all over America if we really choose to. The fear that people have, I always hear, well, if we do it, what's going to stop them from doing what they did before? Well, having these organizations. A lot of people don't understand when you talk about Tulsa. There were 5 Black men who defended Tulsa to the very end. A lot more people would have lost their lives during the Tulsa Race Massacre if it wasn't for those 5 heroes. One who happened to be a veteran. They thought he was crazy because he was stockpiling guns and weapons. But he knew that eventually they would have to be used. And so that's the same mentality we have to have today. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We can rebuild our communities. That's one of the biggest things that we talk about, having our own safe spaces, building our own communities. But we have to be able to protect it. So when these reparations checks come in, when we have this explosion and this growth, we have to be able to protect what we build. Because if we can't protect it, they'll destroy it again. And so it's very important that we understand that. It's very important that we continue to develop and grow our self-defense force, to grow our skills when it comes to self-defense and being able to equip ourselves, because we can't let what happened in the past with a Greenwood or a Rosewood or, the numerous other places that, that they destroyed throughout the history of our country. And so, it's very big. So even if you aren't the biggest advocate of the Second Amendment, you should be an advocate of self-preservation. And that's all that really is, it comes down to. So, I just hope people understand that and continue to grow this movement that we have.
Well, General Bezzel, Commander Henderson, Miss Kat, I thank you both so much for being here. And for our audience, you can go to egpgunclub.com. You can go to EGP Gun Club on social media so that you can stay involved with the Gun Club, with Nick Bezzel, with Kat Henderson, so that we can protect ourselves. And so I'm going to sign off. Like the show, follow us. We will be coming back with 2 shows next month, and we're getting back into our 2025 after our hiatus. Thank you guys so much for being here with us. Until next time, peace and reparations. Advocate from where you are.